So this is going to be a quick part 2 on that Sharp VL-H870 camcorder that I worked on the other day. And pretty much what happened, this is going to be a warning as well too, is I went ahead and did the repair. Of course, put it through its paces and tested it out, ran the tape through it where I wanted to run the tape completely through, and within 30 minutes, the tracking was going in and out, and of course the audio was dropping in and out too as well and stuff, because the way the audio is read on this, it's read on the video heads and stuff. But either way it goes, what caused that was the bearings were failing in the head itself, and you could hear it as it surged up and down, and the head was getting louder and so forth. And of course the servo motor was trying to maintain speed and stuff, and it wasn't able to because the head was likely starting to seize up. But either way it goes, it's a warning, because if you look at that lettering on top of there, no, I didn't clean the head. So someone was in it, was cleaning the head. You can see, they even went ahead and wiped some of the lettering on that side. So likely what happened, what caused the head to fail, because I have seen this hundreds of times when I used to service these, is people will go ahead and overuse alcohol. They'll go and put a lot of alcohol, they'll douse the whole head practically in alcohol and stuff. And what happens is especially with the stator on top or the stator in the middle, like the Panasonics on the hydro bearing, they'll actually put the stator in the middle, is that alcohol will actually destroy the lubricants in the head itself. And that's what I suspect happened, because you can see there, the lettering pretty much right above, you can see where it kind of walked off, which meaning that alcohol managed to get its way up there too as well and stuff, and likely probably destroyed the lubricant in the head. And of course, after running 30 minutes, that's when the camcorder started acting up and stuff. And typically when the head has a bearing that's failing, it's not going to show right away. It'll show after you play it for an hour or two. And that's why any camcorder I fix, I always run for an hour or two to make sure no other issues pop up, of course. Because you do get them where you will have a tendency, because these things are over 25 years old, you'll have other issues that popped up even after you repaired it and stuff. So it's always a good idea, especially if you're reselling. Always run the equipment for at least a couple hours, like a burning and stuff, and make sure that no issues pop up, of course, before you go and resell it. Otherwise, you'll have a boomerang on your hand pretty much. And no one wants that, because that just costs money and time and stuff. So always check the stuff before you go and resell it. But either way it goes, what happened was, you can see this is the transport out of that camcorder now, and you can see there's a few parts missing, because I went ahead and took the whole top half, also as well as the dampener and everything else from the transport I took from another camcorder, and I transferred it over to the transport that I was actually going to use, and used the bottom half of the newer transport that I use. And it happened to have the same head, the same capstan motor and everything else, even though that was a mono camera. But the way the audio works on this is not like a VHS where they have separate heads for the hi-fi audio and stuff. It's actually read from the same heads that do the video and stuff. So kind of interesting the way it works, and I'll do a whole nother topic on how the AFM system works on a Hi8 and Video 8 system and so forth, and PCM audio and all that. But either way it goes, had the same amount of heads, same azimuth, same connection, because I looked and matched the cable course going into the preamp and stuff, and it was exactly the same. So I went ahead and took the top half off the transport. I also took the pinch rotor from the other transport because it was in better condition. I also took the preamp, swapped the preamps over and stuff like that, and then went ahead and had to do a back tension alignment, which that took several attempts, because you kind of got to run it through, and you want to make sure you don't got too much back tension or too little back tension. Too little back tension, what will happen is, as you go and stop or you go to eject the tape and stuff, it'll leave too much slack, and of course you go ahead and pull it, it'll eat the tape. Now if you got too much back tension, it'll wear the heads out. So you want to make sure when you, of course, adjusting the back tension stuff, that you actually mark it. And then when you mark it, you're likely even then going to have to adjust, especially with changing the reels, because they're all different and stuff. And then you want to make sure and eject it a few times, make sure that the back tension is actually floating, but it's not leaving too much slack. And as you eject the tape, of course, it's not eating the tape because there's too little back tension. So it's trial and error pretty much, since I don't have a gauge to actually, go ahead and test the back tension stuff, and pretty much no one does. You just got to go and put the tape and kind of test it and make small adjustments till you get it just about right, which is what I did. And I went ahead and adjusted, of course, the entrance and exit guides and stuff like that and so forth. And now that camcorder works 100%. So I'll go ahead and bring that camcorder up and, show you in a minute that it works and stuff. But what I mean that this video is going to be a warning is what a lot of people have a tendency to do when they go and clean heads is they use way too much alcohol. And of course, worse, they even use Q-tips. Two things you don't want to do, especially with a Hi8 or DV camcorder, is actually even use alcohol, because you can't dissolve metal, for one. And I did a whole video on this. But number two, what tends to happen, because you could see the stator motors on the top, and you could see it got on the stator motor as well on this side and that side. So he used a ridiculous amount of alcohol, and likely it worked its way into the bearing and of course destroyed the lubricant and stuff. And that's why you got to be very careful with these, especially with the VHSC, like the Panasonic VHSC, because they use the hydro bearing and the rotary transformers in the middle, and also the stators in the middle too as well and stuff. And those are more acceptable, especially to where you can actually destroy the lubricant and stuff like that. And because they're essentially considered a sealed unit, you're replacing the whole entire head. And same thing with this on all Hi8s and, Digital 8 camcorder, they're a sealed assembly. And Sharp even says in the service manual, you can't replace the upper or lower drum. You got to replace it as one assembly in the service manual itself. So this is a sealed one. So it's not like I can go in there and re-oil the bearing. Now, on the Panasonics, you actually can. And I'll show you how to do that on one of those one day. But it's going to involve having stick paper in between the head so you keep the gap, removing the spiral plate, which is 3 hex screws on the top, and then you got to remove the C-clip, and then you can remove the whole upper assembly, and you can go ahead and re-oil. And for that, I normally use the same lubricant that they use to oil turntable bearing that Technic sells and stuff. And it might actually be the same stuff because it's the same consistency, same color and everything. So they don't tell you exactly what they use, but it's worked well over the years. And literally, I had decks where I done that and they ran over 3 years plus with no problems. So that's for a whole nother video when I work on those VHSC and those SVHS machines and stuff like that, because that's a whole nother topic on its own. But either way it goes, on Hi8, Video 8 DV, you don't need alcohol. You can use the fingernail trick, of course. And, of course, if that doesn't work, you can use a cleaning tape for 10 seconds, and that won't clog it. Now, if you do happen to get where you get sticky stuff, the binder on the actual top or low, upper and lower drum, or on the guides and stuff, you can use alcohol in the swab, but you use very little, and then you can just wipe it clean. And then essentially, once you don't get no more head stiction or the tape's not sticking apart, you can run a clean tape through it, and that will pretty much polish the head back to where it's shiny again. But either way it goes, unfortunately, alcohol is what actually caused this head drum to fail. And the reason why I kind of advise against it, one of the many reasons I should say, but just a warning for you guys. So here's the Sharp ViewCam VL-H870, fully repaired this time actually. And I want to show you the difference between now an actual properly working head drum for properly working transport compared to the part 1. Because if you listen to part 1, you'll hear that it didn't quite sound right. It sounded like the head was surging a little. You can kind of hear it in the background, and you could also hear a slight clicking sound compared to this fully rebuilt transport, which I took out of model camcorder, ironically. And yes, I did make sure the head drum is the same, has the same amount of head, azimuth, and everything. So the same exact head capstan. And I took the top half, of course, of the original transport, because it was slightly different, and I put it on that transport and had to redo the timing Had to do a full alignment and everything, including back tension and also the entrance and exit guides and stuff. And just after all repairs is complete, and I'll go and push play and you'll hear the difference. Okay, it does have audio, of course. Okay, we'll turn down the audio and I'll just let you listen to the transport. And you can hear how much quieter that is. I'll go and let you hear for a few more seconds. And that's the way it should sound. And of course, now that I went ahead and did alignment, which I did use a reference tape, and did alignment with the oscilloscope to make sure that the RF on both heads are equal and it's not one head putting out too much RF to the other ones and stuff, and you gotta actually go out on the analog output on the preamplifier and stuff. But yep, it's perfectly in line. You're no longer like as on the first video where you saw the tracking lines on the top or the bottom and stuff. It's playing this tape perfectly as my other camcorders do. You can hear the audio is nice and clear, but I can't play too much because I don't want no copyright strikes. Okay, and now actually we'll just do bass scan. I'll show you the difference in that too. And yeah, you can see how much cleaner that is. That of course was due to the head drum bearings failing. But now it's nice and clean, no more. We'll go reverse scan. And that's the way it should work. That's the way all my other sharps work too. Yep, and she works perfectly now. And we'll go ahead and do a fast forward. This is the same tape too that I played on part 1. I did that on purpose just to show you how much cleaner it is. Of course, this tape, like I said, does have damage. That's why it's a test tape. But okay, let's turn off this music. But either way it goes. Yep, and then we'll go still. And then forward a little bit. And then, so yep, that's the way it should work. And like I said, this video is a warning to those that, you know, of course, I don't want to rewind it all the way at the beginning, because at the beginning this tape was eaten in another camcorder, so I don't want to end up dunking up the head, so I'm going to kind of stop it right before it gets to the beginning. But this goes as a warning. Be careful on how you clean your heads. You don't got to use excessive amount of alcohol if you're trying to get tape binder off the head, because the head becomes sticky and got head stiction. Just put some on a swab, a lint-free swab, of course, not a cotton swab, and then just clean the shiny surface. Try not to touch the heads, of course, and only use as little as possible. Don't douse the head in alcohol like I showed you in that other video where that lady literally doused the head in alcohol, and likely what someone did on the original head, reason why the head failed and stuff, because what will happen is it will destroy the lubricant, especially the stator motors on the top or in the middle of the head and stuff, and you're not going to get very many hours out of that head. I'll just put it that way. And that's what happened to this camcorder, unfortunately. Thankfully, I happened to have another transport that had the same head and capstan motor, and I just swapped it over, essentially, making one good transport. And now it works perfect. So we'll go ahead and also to eject the tape. Why not? Since we already got this far here. And you can see it there. And there you go. This concludes the video pretty much.